High Counselor Zixtal's four eyes widened as the emergency alert flashed across the massive control screen. The peaceful afternoon in the Galactic Council's monitoring station had just been shattered by something unprecedented. "Impossible," he whispered, his scaled skin shifting from blue to pale green in shock. "No unregistered species should have this capability." The detection system had picked up an unknown vessel traveling through hyperspace, a feat that only the 12 recognized species of the Galactic Council had mastered. Or so they had thought. "Show me the vessel," Zixtal ordered, his voice steady despite his growing concern. The massive screen shifted, displaying a ship unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. It was huge, easily rivaling their largest vessels, but its design was completely foreign. Sharp angles and dark metal plates covered its hull, and what appeared to be weapon ports lined its sides. "By the first ones," muttered Senior Analyst Kriva, her tendrils writhing in agitation. "Those are weapon systems. Advanced ones. This is a warship." The vessel's design spoke of warfare and combat, concepts that the Council had largely abandoned thousands of years ago. Their ships were elegant, designed for scientific research and peaceful exploration. This was built for battle. "It's approaching Council space at high velocity," reported Junior Analyst Mex. "Their trajectory suggests they know exactly where they're going." Zixtal straightened his ceremonial robes and made a decision. "Send the standard greeting package. Let's see who these newcomers are." The response came faster than expected. The unknown ship dropped out of hyperspace with precision that made several Council technicians gasp. Its dark hull seemed to absorb the light from the nearby star, making it look even more intimidating up close. The communication screen flickered to life, and for the first time, the Council saw a human. The creature had pale skin, red hair pulled back tightly, and wore a dark uniform adorned with symbols of rank unknown to the Council. "This is Commander Emma Crawford of the United Earth Federation vessel US Nemesis. We receive your greeting and return it in kind." The human's voice was clear and confident, showing no sign of awe at meeting an advanced alien civilization. Zixtal felt his scales ripple with unease. The creature spoke as an equal, not as a representative of a younger species should. "Welcome, Commander Crawford. I am High Counselor Zixtal. Your presence here is unexpected. Our records show your species was still planet-bound less than 2 centuries ago." Commander Crawford's lips curved slightly upward. "You've been watching us. We monitor all developing species," Kriva interjected. "Your kind was marked as pre-spaceflight, Category 4 civilization. You shouldn't have achieved faster-than-light travel for at least another millennium." The human's expression remained unchanged, but something in her eyes made Zixtal's protective second eyelids flicker nervously. "We had motivation to advance quickly," she said simply. The Council members exchanged worried glances. Species that developed too quickly often became unstable, dangerous. Yet here was this human, commanding a warship that their initial scan suggested was more advanced than they had first thought. "Your vessel," Zixtal said carefully, "it appears to be military in nature." "The Nemesis is our latest battleship class," Crawford confirmed. "We believe in being prepared." "Prepared?" Kriva's tendrils twisted in confusion. "For what?" "For anything." Crawford's answer was simple, but carried weight that made the room fall silent. Zixtal studied the human commander more carefully. Their database had classified humans as a curious species, creative but primitive. Nothing had suggested this level of advancement. Nothing had hinted at this military capability. "We would like to dock at your station," Crawford continued. "Earth is interested in establishing diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council." Zixtal found himself nodding before he could fully consider the implications. "Of course, we will send docking coordinates." Only after the transmission ended did he realize his scales had shifted to the pale yellow of fear. "High Counselor," Kriva approached his position, her voice low. "The scan results. Their ship's hull is made of materials we can't identify. Their power readings are off our charts. And those weapon ports, they're not just for show. Zixtel stared at the massive dark shape of the U.S. Nemesis through the station's observation window. Humans had achieved in 2 centuries what had taken the Council species thousands of years, and they had done it with war in mind. "Alert the full Council," he ordered quietly. "I believe we may have made a serious error in our assessment of Earth." In the vacuum of space, the Nemesis waited patiently, its dark hull reflecting no light, its weapons quiet but ready. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same. The docking tube connected to the U.S. Nemesis with a soft hiss. Zixtel stood with his diplomatic team, trying to hide his nervousness as they waited for the human delegation. Behind him, 3 of the Council's top scientists fidgeted with their scanning devices. The airlock door slid open, revealing Lieutenant Robert Hayes, a tall human male with dark skin and broad shoulders. He wore a crisp blue uniform that seemed designed to highlight his physical strength rather than show rank or status. "Welcome aboard the Nemesis," Hayes said with a smile that showed too many teeth for the Council members' comfort. "I'm Lieutenant Hayes, ship's diplomatic officer. Commander Crawford sends her apologies. She's handling a minor engineering matter." Zixtel noticed how the human moved with fluid grace despite the ship's artificial gravity, which their scans showed was significantly stronger than Council standard. Even more disturbing was how the human showed no signs of radiation sickness, despite the readings their instruments were picking up. "Your ship," began Dr. Pax, the Council's chief scientist, "it's using some very interesting technology." The small, gray-skinned alien held up a scanner that was giving off warning beeps. "These radiation levels should be lethal." Hayes laughed, a sound that made several Council members step back. "Oh, that's just the shield harmonics. We're hardened against it. Had to be, considering what's out there." He gestured for them to follow. "Shall we begin the tour?" As they walked through the Nemesis corridors, the Council team grew more uneasy. The ship was clearly built for war, but it was the small details that truly frightened them. The metal of the floors showed no wear despite the heavy gravity. The air was thick with oxygen levels that should have been dangerously combustible. Every door was reinforced enough to survive explosions. "This is our main recreation area," Hayes said, leading them into a large room where several crew members were exercising. The aliens watched in horror as humans lifted weights that would crush most species, ran on treadmills at speeds that seemed impossible, and sparred in what looked like combat practice. "You train for combat during leisure time?" Zixtel asked carefully. "Got to stay sharp," a female crew member said as she passed by, casually wiping sweat from her forehead. She had just finished lifting weights that could have crushed a Council transport vehicle. The tour continued to the science labs, where Dr. Pax nearly fainted. "These containment fields," he squeaked, "they're holding samples of. Are those stellar core materials?" "Just some basic research materials," Hayes said with a shrug. "Our containment fields are pretty reliable." The Council team huddled together, speaking in whispers. "Their basic research involves materials we wouldn't dare to study," one scientist muttered. "And did you see their medical bay? They literally cut themselves open to do repairs." "Surgery," Hayes corrected, his hearing apparently much better than they had assumed. "Been doing it for centuries. Works pretty well." The final stop was the bridge. Commander Crawford was there now, studying star charts with her crew. The massive view screen showed their sector of space, but with overlays and tactical information the Council members had never considered necessary for peaceful exploration. "As you can see," Hayes said, "we're fully equipped for peaceful contact with new civilizations." He paused. "And other scenarios." Zixtel couldn't help but notice that every crew member on the bridge was armed. They carried their weapons so naturally, like they were simply another part of their uniform. The Council had abandoned personal weapons millennia ago. "One last question," Dr. Pax said, his voice shaking slightly. "Our scans show materials in your hull we can't identify. The energy readings are impossible. Commander Crawford turned from her station. We had to get creative with materials science. Earth isn't the safest place in the galaxy. We adapted. The implications hit Zixtal like a physical blow. Earth, a planet so dangerous it forced its inhabitants to become stronger, faster, and more resilient than any species the Council had ever encountered. A world that taught its children to treat radiation, high gravity, and lethal atmospheres as normal. "Thank you for the tour," Zixtal said formally, trying to keep his scales from shifting to fear yellow again. "The Council will need to discuss these revelations." As they walked back to their station, Zixtal's assistant whispered, "What are we going to do? They're not just advanced. They're dangerous." Zixtal looked back at the Nemesis, its dark hull somehow seeming even more threatening now that he knew what it contained. "We're going to be very, very careful," he said quietly. "And we're going to hope they really are interested in peace." Behind them, the human battleship loomed in silence, its crew going about their duties, unaware of just how terrifying their normal daily routine appeared to the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Chief Engineer David Wilson stood in the Nemesis's massive engine room, watching with amusement as the alien scientists stared at the ship's power core. Their scanner devices were beeping frantically, and their various appendages trembled. "This is impossible," Dr. Pax muttered, his gray skin turning almost white. "You're containing a miniature star in here." Wilson grinned and patted the power core's outer casing. "Oh, this old thing. It's just our backup power system. The main reactor is 2 decks down." He pointed downward casually. "Had to have redundancy, you know. Space is dangerous." Before the aliens could recover from this shock, the ship's intercom crackled. "All hands, this is Security Chief Martinez. Combat drill will begin in 5 minutes. All stations prepare." The Council members looked around nervously as red lights began flashing in the corridors. Wilson smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, it's just a routine drill. In fact, you folks are in for a treat. Want to see how we train?" Without waiting for an answer, he led them to the combat observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, they could see crew members rushing to their stations. Security Chief Lisa Martinez stood at the control panel, her fingers dancing over the controls. "Beginning Level 3 combat simulation," she announced. "Scenario: multiple hostile contacts. Shield systems damage. Engine power at 60%. The aliens watched in horror as the training area transformed. Holographic enemies appeared, firing weapons that looked far too real. The human crew responded with terrifying efficiency. "Look at them move," whispered one Council scientist. "Even in full combat gear, they're faster than our best athletes." The training squad demonstrated hand-to-hand combat next. The Council members flinched as humans threw each other around, absorbed hits that should have been lethal, and kept fighting. Their movements were quick, precise, and absolutely lethal. "This is just basic training," Martinez explained, noticing their reactions. "Nothing special. We do this 3 times a week." Dr. Pax's scanner suddenly sparked and died. "The energy readings. They're off the scale. What weapons are they using?" "Standard issue plasma rifles," Martinez said with a shrug. "Low power setting, of course. We don't want to damage the ship during practice." The aliens huddled together, whispering frantically. "Low power. Those energy levels could vaporize our strongest materials." The demonstration continued as the crew showed off their emergency procedures. Humans in heavy suits walked through areas that the Council's sensors indicated were hot enough to melt metal. They lifted and moved equipment that should have required heavy machinery. "And here's my favorite part," Wilson said cheerfully. "Watch this." The lights suddenly went out. Emergency sirens blared. A voice announced, "Hull breach simulated on Deck 7. Atmospheric pressure dropping. Gravity systems failing." The Council members expected panic. Instead, they watched in amazement as the human crew moved even faster. They magnetized their boots instantly, sealed breaches in seconds, and continued fighting the holographic enemies, all while floating in zero gravity. Time, Martinez called out. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Not bad, but I know we can do better. Better, Zixtal croaked. They handled a hull breach, gravity failure, and enemy attack in less than 4 minutes. Well, yeah, Wilson said. In real combat, we might not have that much time. The council members watched as the crew reset for another drill. Each human moved with the calm confidence of a predator, their weapons and tools handled with casual expertise that spoke of constant practice. One question, Dr. Pax said quietly. Why do you train so hard when there's peace in this sector of space? Martinez and Wilson exchanged glances. Peace is great, Martinez said. We love peace, but in our experience, peace lasts longer when you're ready for war. As if to emphasize her point, an explosion rocked the training area. The humans barely seemed to notice, continuing their drills as flames and smoke filled the chamber. The fire suppression systems didn't even activate. Apparently, this level of destruction was considered normal. I think, Zixtal said carefully, we should report back to the council immediately. As they hurried back to their shuttle, the sounds of combat training followed them. Behind them, the humans continued their routine drills, casually defying what the council had thought were the fundamental laws of physics and biology. In the shuttle, Dr. Pax looked at his readings one last time before his scanner died completely. High Counselor, he said, his voice shaking, I don't think we're dealing with just another spacefaring species. These humans, they're something else entirely. The U.S. Nemesis continued its drills, its crew unaware that their normal training day had just redefined the galaxy's understanding of the word dangerous. The emergency alarms on the council station screamed to life just as Zixtal was finishing his preliminary report about the humans. The massive display screens flashed red, showing multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Pirates, shouted a control room operator. Raxan raiders, at least 20 ships. The Raxam pirates were infamous throughout this sector, known for their advanced weapons and complete lack of mercy. They had destroyed 3 council stations in the past year alone. Our defense shields are only at 60% strength, reported Kriva, her tendrils writhing in panic. We can't survive a full assault. Before Zixtal could respond, a familiar voice came through the communication system. Council Station, this is Commander Crawford of the U.S. Nemesis. We're picking up multiple hostile contacts. Do you require assistance? The council members looked at each other in surprise. They had almost forgotten about the human ship during their panic. Commander, Zixtal said carefully, these are Raxam pirates. They have 20 ships, even your impressive vessel. Tactical Officer Boyd. Crawford's voice cut in. You're clear to engage. Standard containment protocol. The council members rushed to the observation window. The U.S. Nemesis was already moving, its dark hull seeming to absorb the light from nearby stars. The pirate fleet approached rapidly, their weapons charging. Fascinating, said Tactical Officer Kevin Boyd's calm voice over the comm. Their weapons are based on plasma acceleration, rather primitive. Permission to demonstrate our point defense systems, Commander. Granted, Crawford replied. Try not to destroy too many of them. We want some left to spread the word. What happened next made the council scientists question their sanity. The Nemesis's defense screens lit up, not with the standard energy fields the council used, but with something that seemed to bend space itself. The pirates' first volley of attacks simply vanished. What kind of shields are those? Dr. Pax whispered, his instruments once again overloading. Their weapons are gone, Kriva said in disbelief. Not blocked. Gone. Oh, that's our quantum point defense grid. Boyd's voice came through, sounding almost bored. It shifts the incoming fire into another dimension. Saves energy compared to traditional shields. The pirates, apparently realizing their weapons were useless, began to retreat. But the Nemesis was faster, much faster. Target their engines only, Crawford ordered. Let's not be too harsh on our first day in Council space. The human ship moved with impossible speed, firing weapons that the Council's sensors couldn't even classify. Each shot disabled a pirate ship with surgical precision, leaving them floating helplessly in space. Engines disabled on 18 ships, Boyd reported casually, as if he was reading a shopping list. 2 are trying to escape through the asteroid field. The asteroid field is too dense. Zixtal shouted. No ship can navigate at speed through. His voice died as he watched the Nemesis dance through the asteroid field, moving between rocks that should have been too close together for any ship to pass. The remaining pirates didn't stand a chance. All hostile ships disabled, Boyd reported 5 minutes later. Minimal damage to their life support systems. They'll live to regret their choices. The Council station erupted in chaos. The Raxan pirates have been terrorizing this sector for years, defeating the best ships and weapons the Council could develop. The humans had disabled their entire fleet in less than 10 minutes, treating it like a minor inconvenience. Commander Crawford, Zixtal said, his scales now permanently stuck in the yellow shade of fear. We thank you for your assistance. Happy to help, Crawford replied. Would you like us to take the pirates into custody? Our brig has plenty of room. Your brig can hold 20 ships worth of Raxans, Kriva asked in disbelief. Of course, Crawford said, and they could hear the smile in her voice. We believe in being prepared for anything. As the Nemesis began the process of capturing the disabled pirate ships, using tractor beams that seemed to ignore the laws of physics, the Council members gathered in their emergency chamber. Did you see how they fought? One member whispered. They weren't even trying their hardest. Those weapons, another added. They didn't just disable the pirates. They did it without killing anyone. That takes more skill than simple destruction. Zixtal looked out at the Nemesis, now efficiently collecting the pirate ships like a farmer harvesting crops. We thought they were just another young species, he said quietly. We were wrong. They're not young. They're evolved for war in ways we can't understand. In space, the U.S. Nemesis continued its work, its crew treating one of the most significant naval battles in recent Council history as nothing more than a routine patrol incident. Dr. Anna Peters, Chief Medical Officer of the U.S. Nemesis, stood in the Council's main conference room. She was giving what she thought was a simple presentation about human medical capabilities. But with each slide, the alien representatives grew more disturbed. So you see, she said cheerfully, pointing to an image of human DNA, we can now fix most genetic problems before birth. And if we miss something, we can repair it later using targeted cell therapy. You modify your own genetic code, asked a Council doctor, their 6-fingered hands shaking, deliberately. Of course, Peters replied. How else would we fix mutations from radiation exposure? Space is full of radiation, after all. The Council members whispered among themselves. One of them fainted when Peters showed them a video of a routine surgery. You cut people open while they're still alive. Another Council doctor asked in horror. Well, we use anesthesia, Peters explained. And most surgeries are done by medical robots now, much more precise than human hands. She switched to the next slide. Now let me show you how we regrow lost limbs. Before she could continue, High Counselor Zixtal rushed into the room. His scales were flashing between yellow and green, a sign of extreme agitation. Dr. Peters, he said urgently, we've just received the full report about Earth. Is it true that your planet has survived multiple extinction-level events? Peters nodded casually. Oh yes, the dinosaur-killing asteroid, several ice ages, massive volcanic eruptions. That's just in the last few million years, not counting all the wars, of course. Wars? Zixtal's voice was barely a whisper. How many wars has your species survived? Well, Peters thought for a moment. I'm not great at history, but thousands. We lost count somewhere along the way. The last big one was about 80 years ago. That's what really kicked our technology into high gear." The room fell silent. The Council species had abandoned warfare millions of years ago. The concept of a species that evolved through constant conflict was terrifying. "And your planet?" another Council member asked. "The reports say it's highly dangerous." "Earth?" "Oh yeah," Peters laughed. "We've got everything. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, deadly animals, extreme temperatures. The gravity's pretty high too, compared to most habitable planets. Makes us great at space travel, though." She pulled up an image of Earth on the screen. The Council scientists studied it with horror. High gravity, extreme weather, deadly wildlife, natural disasters. It was everything they classified as unsuitable for intelligent life. "This explains so much," Dr. Pax muttered. "Their strong bones, dense muscles, radiation resistance. They evolved on a death world." "A what?" Peters asked curiously. "A death world," Zixtal explained, his voice shaking. "A planet so dangerous that any species evolving there must become like you," finished Kriva. "Adaptable, resilient, capable of surviving things that would kill most species." Peters shrugged. "I guess that makes sense. We do have pretty good survival instincts. Want to see our research on extending human lifespans? We're up to about 150 years now." "There's more," another Council member said, reading from a datapad. "Their art, their entertainment, so much of it is about war, conflict, survival against impossible odds." "Oh yeah," Peters smiled. "Have you seen our movies? I can recommend some good ones. There's this classic called Independence Day, where we fight off alien invaders." She stopped as she noticed several Council members turning pale, or their species equivalent of pale. "You create entertainment about fighting aliens?" Zixtal asked weakly. "Among other things," Peters said. "We like happy endings, though. Usually the aliens and humans end up best friends. Speaking of which, want to see how we've modified our medical technology to work with different species? We've been preparing, just in case we met anyone who needed help." The Council members looked at each other. A species that evolved on a death world, survived multiple extinctions, thrived on warfare, and still wanted to help others. It defied everything they thought they knew about the development of intelligent life. "I think," Zixtal said carefully, "we need to seriously reconsider our classification of humanity. They're not just another spacefaring race. They're something we've never encountered before." Peters continued her presentation, unaware that she had just confirmed the Council's greatest fears, and strangely, their greatest hopes. Humanity wasn't just powerful. They were powerful and wanted to help. In orbit above them, the U.S. Nemesis continued its patrol, its crew going about their daily routines, unaware that they represented everything the galaxy's most advanced civilizations feared, and secretly wished they could be. The Council chamber was in chaos. All 12 species representatives argued loudly, while holographic displays showed images of the U.S. Nemesis and Earth. Commander Emma Crawford stood calmly in the center of the room, watching the debate with interest. "They must be contained," shouted the Vex representative, his crystalline form flashing with alarm colors. "A species this dangerous cannot be allowed to roam freely." "Are you volunteering to try and contain them?" asked another Council member sarcastically. "Did you miss the part where they treated a Raxan pirate fleet like annoying insects?" High Councilor Zixtal raised all 4 arms for silence. "Commander Crawford, you must understand our concern. Your species has advanced too quickly. Your technology breaks our laws of physics. Your biology defies our understanding." Crawford nodded politely. "We understand your fears. But Earth has no interest in conquest or dominance. We only want peaceful trade and cultural exchange." Just then, Weapons Officer Brian Murphy burst into the chamber. "Commander, sorry to interrupt, but we just finished the weapons test you requested." The Council members froze. Crawford sighed. Murphy, realizing his mistake, turned red. What weapons test? Zixtal asked carefully. Murphy looked at Crawford, who nodded for him to continue. Well, we were testing our new defensive system. The one that can redirect incoming attacks back at the attackers. Works great. Even better than the simulation suggested. The chamber erupted again. They can reflect weapons fire. Their defensive systems are offensive weapons too. How is this possible? If I may, Crawford raised her voice slightly, but somehow it cut through all other noise. Yes, we have advanced weapons. Yes, we're stronger than you expected. But look at our actions since arriving. We helped defend your station. We captured pirates alive instead of destroying them. We've shared medical knowledge. The council members fell silent, considering her words. Let me be very clear, Crawford continued. Earth could have explored this sector quietly. We could have hidden our capabilities. Instead, we came openly, seeking friendship. But why? Asked the Vex representative. If you're so powerful, why seek alliance with us? Crawford smiled. Because we've learned something in all our years of war and survival. Being strong isn't enough. Connection, cooperation, friendship. These make us all stronger. Earth doesn't want subjects or servants. We want allies, partners. Murphy, still standing awkwardly by the door, added, Plus, you folks have really cool art and music. Our cultural department can't wait to arrange exchanges. Several council members blinked in surprise. This warlike species wanted to exchange art. There's something else you should know, Crawford said. Our long-range sensors detect something coming. Something big from outside the galaxy. We don't know what it is yet, but it doesn't look friendly. The chamber went completely silent. Earth believes that survival is easier together, Crawford continued. Yes, we're built for war. Yes, we're dangerous. But wouldn't you rather have us standing with you than against you? Zixtal's scales shifted to a new color, one of deep thought. You're saying you want to protect us. We want to protect everyone, Crawford corrected. It's what humans do. We see someone in trouble, we help. Sometimes that means fighting. Sometimes it means healing. Sometimes it means sharing art and music. Murphy nodded enthusiastically. We're already designing ships that can be crewed by multiple species, making sure the gravity and atmosphere can adjust to anyone's needs. The council members huddled together, discussing in whispers. Finally, Zixtal turned back to Crawford. Never in our history have we faced a decision like this, he said. You terrify us, Commander Crawford. Your species terrifies us. But perhaps that's exactly what this galaxy needs right now. Crawford's smile widened. Does this mean Earth is welcomed into the Council? With conditions, Zixtal said quickly. You must share your defensive technology. Teach us how you achieve these impossible things. Help us prepare for whatever is coming. Of course, Crawford agreed. That was always the plan. Though I should warn you, our teaching methods can be intense. Murphy grinned. Wait until they see our training programs. Several council members paled, but Zixtal stood firm. We accept. May the galaxy survive our decision. Oh, it'll do more than survive, Crawford said confidently. Together, we'll make sure it thrives. As the council members began discussing details, Murphy whispered to his commander, Should I tell them about the rest of our fleet? Crawford shook her head slightly. Let's save some surprises for later. They've had enough shocks for one day. The U.S. Nemesis hung in space above the station, its dark hull now representing not just humanity's power, but their commitment to protection, cooperation, and hope. 6 months after the U.S. Nemesis first appeared at the Council Station, High Counselor Zixtal stood watching the graduation ceremony of the first Joint Human Council Defense Force. His scales now shifted regularly between colors of amazement and pride. Below him, in the station's massive training hall, 50 aliens of various species moved in perfect formation. They wore modified versions of human combat suits, adapted for their different body types. Leading them was Security Chief Lisa Martinez, who had somehow managed to teach combat techniques to species that had known only peace for millennia. "They're ready," Martinez reported to Commander Crawford, who stood beside Zixtal. "Every single one of them can now handle gravity shifts, radiation exposure, and emergency situations. They've even mastered basic hand-to-hand combat." "Impossible," muttered Dr. Pax, watching his own nephew, a scientist who had never shown any interest in physical activities, lift a cargo container that would have required machinery 6 months ago. "You've changed their very biology." "Not changed," Dr. Anna Peters corrected, checking readings on her medical tablet. "We just helped them unlock what was already there. Every species has survival instincts. We just taught them how to use them." The evidence of humanity's influence was everywhere. Council ships now carried modified versions of human quantum shields. Their medical bays included Earth-designed regeneration chambers. Even their civilian vessels have been upgraded with human safety features. "Watch this," Chief Engineer Wilson said proudly, pressing a button on his console. The training hall's gravity suddenly reversed. Not a single trainee panicked. They all activated their magnetic boots or used their newfound strength to secure themselves, just as humans had taught them. "Remember when they could barely handle a 5% gravity change?" Martinez laughed. "Now look at them." Zixtal remembered. He also remembered his own fear when humans first suggested these changes. Now, watching the trainees, he understood something profound. "You never wanted to conquer us," he said to Crawford. "You wanted to elevate us." Crawford nodded. "Earth learned long ago that the strongest chain needs every link to be strong. We didn't survive our death world by fighting each other, but by working together." Just then, the station's long-range sensors beeped. The mysterious signal from outside the galaxy had grown stronger. But now, unlike 6 months ago, no one panicked. "Multiple unknown contacts," Tactical Officer Boyd reported calmly. "Similar to the readings we detected before, but clearer now." The new Joint Defense Force moved smoothly to their stations. Council members who once would have hidden now stood ready at their posts, their movements confident and sure. "Whatever's coming," Martine said, watching her trainees. "We're ready for it." Together, Zixtal looked at the massive screen showing the approaching unknown force, then at the fleet gathered around the station. Council ships now flew in formation with human vessels, their crews working together as if they'd done it all their lives. The U.S. Nemesis still led the fleet, but it no longer seemed threatening. It was protection, not danger. "You know what the funny thing is," Wilson said, checking the station's new human-designed power core. "We were more scared of meeting you than you were of meeting us." "You?" Zixtal asked in disbelief. "Scared of us?" Crawford smiled. "We didn't know if advanced aliens would accept us. We thought you might see us as too violent, too dangerous. That's why we came in our strongest ship, showing our full capabilities. We wanted to be honest about who and what we are." "And what are you?" asked Dr. Pax, watching his nephew confidently operating the human-designed weapons system. "We're teachers," Peters said. "Warriors when we need to be, yes. But mainly teachers, healers, explorers. We survived our death world by helping each other. Now we want to help everyone." The unknown signals grew stronger. But now, instead of fear, Zixtal felt something new. Confidence. In 6 months, humanity had taught the Council species more than they had learned in 1,000,000 years of peace. "To think," he said, watching the combined fleet prepare for whatever was coming, "we thought your battleship was something to fear. But it wasn't the ship that mattered. It was what it represented. Humanity's determination to survive, to grow, and to help others do the same." Crawford looked out at the fleet, where Council ships now carried the same quantum shields as the Nemesis. "Fear can be good," she said. "It teaches us our limits. But breaking those limits, that's what humans do best. And now, it's what we all do together." The U.S. Nemesis led the combined fleet toward the mysterious signal, no longer a symbol of terror, but of hope. The Council had met Earth's battleship and known true fear. But in the end, they had found something far more valuable: true strength.